And I want to make sure that I have enabled the closed captioning. Thank you. Sarah, that was probably you. Thank you for doing that. Welcome to our Bridge Learning Community. It's great to see you here on this Thursday. And thank you so much to Britt Pistol, who's here today to talk to us about refugee support. We so appreciate you joining us. She joined us in an ICAPS IET virtual learning community last month. And then in the Bridge VLC, we talked about if people would like to have her come and discuss refugee support. And it was an overwhelming yes. And so thank you so much for joining us for this.
Thank you.
And we always like to share our purpose to fulfill the mission of our year-long Transitions Academy that begins each fall with our fall convening and then continues with opportunities for discussion and growth and professional development and idea sharing throughout the year. And our virtual learning communities are one of the ways that we do that. And so today we want to increase our knowledge, share information, ask questions, and learn from each other. So please, if you have questions, we'll be monitoring the chat. You can unmute yourself. We really would like to encourage discussion and questions and also provide that safe space for people to be able to share. And then something new that we've added, people ask from time to time for a PD certificate. We don't automatically send them for this particular VLC. Sometimes people want them, sometimes people don't. Some of us wear a variety of hats and so still need that PD. And if you do, please feel free to reach out to Sarah or I. You have our regular emails, but you can also email us at sipdctrainer@gmail.com and we will get you that professional development certificate for today. And so without further ado, I am going to stop sharing and Britt has some slides that she prepared to talk to us about refugee support.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and I appreciate you having me here today. And I'll start by sharing screen here. Let's see if this comes on. And great, can everyone see? Should be Welcome Illinois, supporting arrivals, refugees, and asylees in Illinois. Great, thank you. And like Tara said, feel free to type something in the chat or raise hand. I can pause at any time, but I'm going to go through these slides and we can also definitely have a discussion at the end and take questions at the end. That's always very productive. So again, thank you so much for having me here today. And I've been in this position with ICCB now for about a little over 2 months. So it's exciting to be here. So with that, I'll go to the first slide. And I'm just going to move things around here. Great. So what is Welcome Illinois? That's the first question that I put out there because there is a group called Welcome to Illinois. They have a website as well. And basically I've been working with this group, and it's a consortium of nonprofits and community-based organizations that have come together to support people who have been dropped off by bus from Texas. And also, just as a caveat, there are also people coming to Illinois, not only by bus, but other ways as well. So you likely heard on the news that the governor of Texas has been routing people to various sanctuary cities in the US. So Chicago is one of them. There are many places in New York. There are also, I believe Denver has been a sanctuary city for a lot of these new arrivals in the United States. And especially, which you all know, last year in February, when the war began in Ukraine, we were seeing many humanitarian entrants coming into the country to seek refuge from the war. And we also saw the same thing with Afghan refugees coming to the community. I think that was, gosh, now that was probably August, September of 2021, that was occurring when we closed out in Afghanistan. So with that, I'm going to go to the next slide. And again, just to tie back to Welcome to Illinois, it's this consortium of people who are working together, primarily like in Chicago and the suburbs. And it's a lot of community-based organizations who have seen people coming in and trying to figure out how we can best support our new arrivals. New arrivals being asylees, refugees, immigrants, and we can get to that a little bit later on describing that. But first of all, as far as who's arriving, like how many people are arriving, there have been 100 buses and more by now that have arrived in the Chicago area. 3,800 people roughly are now staying at shelters throughout the Chicagoland area. And of that, they've kind of split it between Chicago and the suburbs. So there are about 11 emergency shelters in the Chicago area, specifically in Chicago, sorry, that are housing primarily individuals, men and women individuals. And there are about 11 shelters in the suburbs that are housing primarily families. We see a lot of young children coming in with parents. And so that's how it's kind of been divided up in this area. So what we're seeing in the suburbs are many parents with young children who are being housed in hotels, primarily while they seek services from DHS and many other organizations. And the staff members who are working, I have to say, working with the families are doing an amazing job. I've been meeting some of the DHS staff people who are working and facilitating parents accessing ESL classes and trying to have them access services within the school systems for their children. And even like, for example, I was in Des Plaines handing out information, and there were 10 different schools that the children at this emergency shelter in Des Plaines were being bused to. So the bus would arrive at the shelter and bus to various schools in the area. So really the community is coming together and finding all kinds of ways to help new arrivals. Where are people coming from? And many of you probably already know and are working with some as providers throughout the state. You are seeing people from Venezuela, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, so really all over. So all over these countries are representative, and there's so many different languages spoken. So as adult education providers, there's such a high need, obviously you're seeing, for services in ESL classes. And we've developed a card that has labeled on the card. We have a postcard size card and a business size card. I should have brought the hard copy with me today. That say free ESL classes, and it's actually in 3 languages. So Farsi, Ukrainian, and Spanish. And then we have a business size card to make sure it's in Haitian Creole, actually, so that people can see the title, free English classes available, and then they can call the hotline number and find out, okay, where is the nearest class that I can take? Because people are definitely moving around. They're not staying necessarily at the shelter for a long-term time because they're trying to find access to housing. So people are coming from all over and speaking many different languages. So I wanted to just go briefly over so we're uncertain of the numbers of people arriving now because as of December 21st, Title 42, the public health has remained in place since this date. And so as a reminder, what was put in place during the last administration as a way to keep people from crossing the border because of the possible spread of COVID, like this was enacted in the last administration. And at that point in December, the Supreme Court has put a stay on this order way back in December. And then this announcement came on January 6, 2023, very recently, the following. And forgive me, I'll just read it verbatim here because it's a lot going on as far as the new thing that they instated. Through DHS, this announcement came. Nationals of Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela and their immediate family members may request to come to the United States in a safe and orderly way, but they do have to have a supporter in the United States. So, and I put the source down here, like as far as the details. And what this supporter needs to do is they need to fill out, it's a form called I-134 in order to declare their support of this family or individual, then they are eligible to apply for status in the United States. So that is something very recent that has taken place. And so the numbers have been kind of fluctuating, like they've definitely been going down. We're seeing the number, I should have gotten an update yesterday from the Welcome to Illinois group. I was not able to attend the meeting, but I can get those numbers to you because they haven't released those. It's been fluctuating anywhere from like 30 to 40 to 50 people a day, and they often arrive at Chicago Union Station. And it's just very, very tricky to route them to whichever, the 11 shelters in Chicago versus if they need help at the shelters in the surrounding suburbs. Of course, if they have children, they're likely to go to the suburban area. So why are people coming? A lot of you already know that people are leaving war-torn countries. There's persecution happening related to religion, race, ethnicity. They have a fear of safety, and they're also looking for economic stability. So people are coming from for a lot of different reasons. And also some people may actually have family members here or a community from the country they came from. For example, I know a couple decades ago, there was a huge influx of Somalis coming to Minneapolis. There's a huge population of Somali folks living in Minneapolis. And so that was a huge draw for people and that the network over there. So people are really coming for a variety of reasons. So who are we supporting? What are the nuances between the titles given to individuals? There's, with asylee, refugee, and migrant, there's nuances between each of these, and it definitely gets very complicated. So with asylee, this is a person who has fled their country due to the fear of being persecuted, possible war in their home country, and they come here and they start the process of seeking documentation in their country of destination, like we saw with many folks coming from Ukraine and Afghanistan. Whereas if you look at a refugee, this is a person who's fled their country and can't return due to the fear of being persecuted and because of their race, religion, nationality. But also you hear of many refugee camps, primarily in Eastern Africa, where they're in a state of flux because if they flee their country, say Somalia to Kenya, they're in Kenya in a refugee camp, then that's when their waiting period begins and they apply for, they seek status to their destination country. And then once that's cleared to travel, then they may go to their destination country. And then you have agencies, for example, like in Chicago, and a large agency called Refugee One, then they often work with agencies like that who are dedicated to working solely with refugees. Then the third sector, we have migrants, a person who's left their country of origin purely for financial or economic reasons. My example here is always seasonal agricultural workers. We see it a lot. I admit I come from Wisconsin. I grew up in northeast Wisconsin, and so we definitely see that in the dairy industry a lot in Wisconsin, and the seasonal berry industry. So people are coming from all over for a very short period of time. So that would be migrants seeking economic status so that they can send often money home to their family. So it gets even more complicated, and there's a whole fourth sector that I'll just briefly go over, and it's called humanitarian parolees. So this is a term we use in the US. However, I personally like the term they use in Australia. It's humanitarian entrants. And this term means someone who has temporary stay time in the US, and often it could be roughly 1 to 2 years, and it's totally temporary, and they've A very good example of this would be Afghans who were evacuated in 2021, I think that late summer of 2021, when the US withdrew from Afghanistan. There was this program called Operation Allies Welcome. And so folks were considered humanitarian parolees and came to the US, although they did not have the ability to apply for permanent status, unfortunately. So there are ways that you can make that happen, but it takes an act of Congress. So you have to pass legislation in order to, that's what people are hoping to do, in order to have folks in that category, humanitarian parolee through Operation Allies Welcome and other operations that they have. That's my one example, that they could have they could begin the process of applying for status, residency status, only if they pass that act in Congress. So people are hoping to pass that and work towards that. So that would be a whole fourth sector, humanitarian parolee. So after all that, how can we support asylees, refugees, and new arrivals? I'm gonna move something around here because I see here. There, sorry, something was covering my screen. How can we support folks? We, as we see people coming into the emergency shelters in Chicago and the suburbs, definitely the top two things are housing access, shelter, permanent housing. They need that temporary shelter, but they're definitely looking for permanent housing. For example, I'm going to go back to my Des Plaines example at the hotel, the emergency hotel shelter there, where the numbers were already coming down because people have gotten assistance and found permanent shelter. So it was like maybe one day it was like 89, and then the day I got there, it was already down to 82. So these numbers are definitely coming down. The next thing, food is a huge need. So they need food, travel, figuring out how to use public transportation, and definitely jobs. So these are the top 3-4 things on their list. They need jobs, how to connect with different networks, local hiring, who's gonna hire them, how can they access jobs, and then ESL with classes at community colleges or local community-based organization. That is a big one. School, like I was talking about earlier, how to get kids enrolled to the schools. We have one site that they are sending kids to 10 different schools, 10 different local schools. And of course, healthcare. We're seeing a lot of mental health care needs and medical access they definitely need upon arrival. So when we are working with the ESL classes, a lot of things to think about would be how to keep people engaged in class, for example. What are some things you can do in the ESL classes? Have students tell a story about their day, build trust with a possible icebreaker to start each day. Doing hands-on small group activities. I know when it can be very daunting for students to speak in front of a whole class. And I found that when I was working with ESL students and tutors with the Secretary of State program, for example, it was such a daunting task for people to speak in front of the group of 40 people. We had like 40 people in our class. So instead, doing small activities was much more doable, and they could talk to peers, that type of thing. And then make things relevant to the real world. I know so many of you are already doing this. The students and tutors who I worked with at District 214 were very, very receptive to the hands-on service learning project, for example, that we did, because we had a discussion, we found there was a huge need for the local food pantry and shelter to have more access to food and clothing. So our whole group did a service learning activity, and over the course of 2 weeks, brought in food and clothing donations, and then brought it over to the shelter. So it was a great firsthand activity. So how can we be helpful in the classes that we're offering? And I'm going to go to the next slide here. If it's, oh, for some reason it's not going now. Let's see. There, it was sticky for a minute there. Let's think about important things to consider for staff and instructors when working with asylees and refugees. Trauma and stress are two huge things that we have to think about. And 4 stressors that instructors may be noticing. I know a lot of you are probably working with new arrivals. So for example, you have traumatic, resettlement, acculturation, isolation. These 4 areas we really have to think about. So what would be traumatic stress? Traumatic stress is a very intense experience, event that caused harm to the person's emotional and physical well-being. That would be an example. Think of Turkey. Oh my gosh, Turkey and Syria with the earthquake recently. Resettlement stress. It's more of a stress with the whole family experiencing when they make a new life in a country and just trying to find their way around a new country. And this would include things like culture shock, getting used to everyday things like how to use Western toilets and shopping in a grocery store, using public transport, just everyday things on resettlement that people are trying to get used to. Another stress would be acculturation stress, stress that families are experiencing, trying to navigate and walk that path between their new culture and then the culture of origin. And then lastly, isolation stress that a family or individual could have if they don't have like a network or community. Say, for instance, they don't have that huge Somali community in Minneapolis to network with and find connections with, it becomes an isolation stress factor. So you may be seeing this type of thing. So just thinking about takeaways on creating support for working with refugees and asylees, because stress can manifest in so many different ways. And you probably have many ideas on this as well. Just simple things like welcoming environment, having patience with language barriers, connecting folks to information and networks. I know this is a great example for the DHS folks who are working at emergency shelters. They are constantly connecting folks to information and networks so that they can figure out their housing situation, et cetera. Creating that consistency and routine when working with folks, and also finding relatable materials to real world examples. I have this resource here. This one is from, yes, I think this is the one from Literacy Minnesota. They're an amazing organization and they have information available and a listing of resources that you can utilize, and just go to resources, trauma-informed crisis education resources. So it's a great resource there. And then I mentioned this briefly earlier. These cards are currently being released into the field. So when I'm doing site visits to emergency shelters, I'm bringing the cards, postcard size and business card size, of available in 4 languages. That basically, you can see the quote down here at the very toward the bottom that says free English classes for adults. And then with that, it's in these 4 languages, that statement. So Spanish, Farsi, Ukrainian, Haitian, Creole. So it's in there, and then they can call the hotline. Again, the person on the other end can identify, hey, you know, what is your address? Where are you at? And then they can figure out the closest provider that can provide free ESL classes. So with that, of course, my computer asked me to restart. So I declined because that would not be good. That's good timing because I'm nearing the end here. I want to bring it to you if you have any questions, or I may have missed questions in the chat. If I don't have an answer, I will definitely find it out for you. I also have a list of the 4 or 5 key resources that I utilized, and I can route that list to Tara if you want to send it out, or we can figure out how to get that to you with the websites.
Absolutely. I can email it to everyone from the attend. I can't remember the word, the Zoom list that I get.
Yes. Yeah, that would be
You know
great.
what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, but let's put it out there. If I missed any questions in the chat, I may have gone a little fast, but or experiences that you're having, because I know there's so many new arrivals coming to Illinois.
Hey, Brett. Brett, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great. Just got a question. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you.
As immigrants or new arrivals, I know they're going to Chicagoland first, by design.
Right.
Have your resources, have you noticed any trickling down through the rest of the state, or any collaboration like with Central Illinois or maybe Southern Illinois to relocate some of these individuals? Or
That's a great question. And you know who would be able to, I could put out the question to Welcome to Illinois group is facilitated by Sylvia Puente. I don't know if you've attended any of the Welcome to Illinois meetings, Jamil, but they're very resourceful, and she may know. I know that, of course, the primary numbers are happening in Chicago and then throughout the suburbs. But as far as relocation, I know that some family members are even further out in the United States. So people, some are getting relocated nearby. If community-based organizations are finding permanent housing nearby, then they do, because they often want to keep their children in the nearby school that they've already started at, which is good. And some have been even relocated with their families outside of the state. So I don't have an exact number, but that's a great question, because I know there's a very big welcoming center in Springfield, I believe.
yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've noticed our English language learners have pretty much mostly almost doubled.
Right.
And I don't know, I know that's a loaded statement, but a lot of that may be due to some of the impact or slowdown of the pandemic that stopped, enrollments and things of that nature, to actual maybe individuals are coming, to the welcoming center.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time when I receive them from my program, they're coming in with loved ones or either a community advocate to help them register for classes.
Oh, okay. And I know the community advocate might even be volunteers with community-based organizations, I assume.
Correct, because I know we partner with, you ever heard of CELO? And don't ask me what that stands for. I have to unpack it, but it's a local organization. They meet with us regularly.
Okay.
We just had our first meeting, and they what they do is they advocate for career pathways and services for English language learners. For example, I met with a ELL student, or English L student, who was a psychiatrist in her home country of Brazil, and one of them was a dentist. And so what they try to do is work with educational institutions to help them get back into their career pathways, because both of them are working in a restaurant. And she said, hey, when it comes to English, I got a lot of challenges. But she said something that really touched my heart. But she said, but if everyone would convert everything into Spanish, they will discover that I am super smart.
Yes. Yeah. Well, frustrating for people who have a professional degree, even from their home country. Yes. Definitely. Definitely. Well, I will see also another possibility for the numbers coming down, like heading south in Illinois. They may have that number from DHS, but I will check. I'm not sure the exact number to answer your original question.
And that can work. I'll try to meet with our local workforce board. We got a meeting coming up too.
Okay.
And DHS is one of the partners there, so I can probably ask them if they can provide any insight.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good question.
Well, thank you.
I have a quick question just to ask all of the providers here and you, Britt, thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation.
Thank
We
you.
have a family of Ukraine. It's an extended family of Ukraine professionals. 4 of them are doctors and 1 of them is a pharmacist. And they are currently working in packaging companies and retail stores. And they're wanting to connect with our medical community in Peoria. I bridge ICAPS at Illinois Central College. And so I've reached out to clinics. I've reached out to the University of Illinois Medical School, Unity Point Medical Center, and OSF, just to try to initiate or request a conversation, just to have a conversation, because of course they can't practice medicine. We don't know how long they'll be here. There are lots of elements that have to be considered before they can move forward out of these jobs that they're much overqualified for. But does anyone have any experience with trying to just initiate conversations, networking of professional refugees in their respective careers, just to welcome them, help them feel included? The University of Illinois Medical School really just said, have them apply for a job. They didn't have a lot of options for me. There were a couple of clinics that said, have the family come in and they can shadow our doctors and see how the medical system works here. They're welcome to come in and shadow our doctors and nurses and just learn about our medical community. Some of them have looked into the NCLEX nursing exam to see if, even though they're medically qualified in Ukraine to be doctors, they potentially could, as advanced ESL students, take the NCLEX exam at some point. I'm just hoping to connect them to our communities and having a hard time. Does anybody have experience with that? Maybe no.
Oh, do you want to go first, Laura?
Hi guys, sorry, I'm not Laura, I'm Ichiri Papa Nicole, I'm with Octon. I'm through her Zoom, so when she sent me the invite, I realized I'm like, oh my God, but it's okay. I just wanted to chime in with this conversation, and I've done a lot of work as a transitions coordinator here with our students transitioning into the workforce. And I know with the medical field, it's a little different. It's even if these refugees take the NCLEX, it'll be hard for them to practice because the hospitals have very strict regulations as far as requiring a valid social security number. Yeah. And also there's just a lot of vaccinations that everyone must commit to, and sometimes that becomes like a challenge. So we have to talk to our refugees as far as like what is required to be in a hospital setting in the US. One positive experience that I've had, and I know, as you said, like they are overqualified, but it is a stepping stone, is for them to start at a hospital as a PCT. That's why they're always saying, have them apply so they can be a PCT at a hospital. Mm-hmm. And then within probably 2-3 months, they'll probably become CNA, certified nursing assistants. The hospital supports them. Mm-hmm. Right now, the need is tremendous. So they'll be hired immediately. Like I know they call me all the time, the hospitals in Illinois, as far as how many GED students we have bridging into CNA. And then from the CNA perspective, through a work visa, if they do get, let's say, a work visa that is supported by the employer, by the hospital, if it's like a year long, then that gives them the opportunity to certify, either take the NCLEX or the MCAT. And then they'll be remaining, at the job because of the hospital agreement and such. But I have had, unfortunately, a lot of students, adult and not, in the past, where they finish the degree here as well. And then when they went to the hospital, they had a hard time unless they were full-time students. So there's that's that option too. Like if you are a full-time student, then you get to extend your student visa, which allows you to work. But that's sometimes not something simple to do, because then you have to spend money on classes and remain a student. But as far as the PCT, the CNA, with the hospital support, of course, the income is not as high, but at least they are in the hospital setting, which is a lot better than at a store. And then eventually, the support is there. The hospitals have a lot of employability and tuition waivers for their employers. So hopefully that could be a gateway for them. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We do have one hospital that has, the HR manager said we would hire them if they have work permits as patient access representatives, kind of a step below the CNA, and then they could work on being trained. So thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah, that could be like an MA, like a medical assistant. And then, sure, that's great. That's great to hear.
And there's such a wide range of need. I mean, when I'm talking about the professionals, but you, Britt, are talking about everyone. Everyone has important needs. So I apologize for just narrowing in on a tiny piece of what we want.
No, that's okay, Anne, because it's a very good example. And I was gonna, before I forget, I was gonna ask, what was the inroad that you are possibly making with someone doing shadowing? Because you mentioned that.
It is a community clinic, Heartland Clinic, and they've agreed to let a student from Colombia as well as my Ukraine family just shadow for a day or maybe a week to learn a little bit about the system of medicine here. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for them to ask questions and to learn from each other.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was long-term or a short, it sounds like a short-term opportunity, but very good.
And maybe it could be, it's only in the developing stage. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And to your point, and Laura, we tried to create, before the pandemic kind of crashed it down, I would like to build it back up, an alignment for a community health worker and those type of individuals, because a lot of the hospitals around our surrounding area was expressing that there's a need to have bilingual individuals to serve, various populations.
Yes.
But then the problem is in the details, it's not enough work to establish a livable wage or a solid income.
Yes.
Because, the demand is not there. It's just kind of like they are on call and they're contacted on an ad-need basis. But I guess, have you all had on your areas, was there demands for translators?
We do have in hospitals and clinics. Yes, of course, they use the computer-based teleconferencing much more than they did previously. So that's serves the need as well. But what we see is a rising need of elderly who are at home and who don't speak English.
Wow.
And they don't always have the family members who are now working able to stay at home and take care of them. So community health worker could be the next step, potentially. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Where do you see you said, Britt, that there are so many different countries represented, but I was curious as to what other countries everyone is serving. We have students from Yemen, many from Venezuela, Honduras, and then DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. I was just curious as to which countries you're seeing students arriving as refugees.
Yes, I mean, like I said earlier, like I listed out earlier, but please jump in with the folks represented here, because there's so many different countries that people are coming from. I think primarily last year, Ukrainians and Afghanistan, folks from Afghanistan, but that has been changing since August of this past August with Venezuelans and Spanish-speaking countries. So jump in, everyone. I know Harper and other local community colleges have been seeing a huge influx.
And with this law, just to confirm, if you can, Britt, or anyone, that the new arrivals must have a family or friend sponsor them. Is that true to be here legally?
Yes, it was with the specific countries that I specified. So as of, I believe, January 6th, DHS made that announcement. And so they would have to have either a family member or a supporter officially fill out that form online. It's free, there's no cost, but it's form I-134, I believe.
Okay.
And if they can be a supporter, host, and also financial supporter, I think that's probably a big thing.
Sure.
That's part of what they're filling out that form to identify, hey, I will be able to take this family or this individual and be their supporter.
Do you know the cost of that form, Britt, to submit?
No,
No.
it's free online.
Oh,
And I think, yeah, I should send that link with my page of 5 or so links.
thank you.
And I can send that and we can get it out to the group.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions, or I was going to put out there for anyone having questions on behalf of instructors or instructors who are here who have specific questions, because I know they're seeing a lot of different things in their classrooms.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Andrea Feemig from Harper College. So we are in the northern suburbs and we work closely with Julie Frost, who's also on this meeting. But what I was going to mention before, in addition, is we're seeing, and I probably Julie's seeing the same. In addition, are people from Russia, even though they often don't want to admit it, they call themselves from Siberia and other things.
Yes.
And then all of the former Soviet stands, every Kyrgyzstan, every stand you ever dreamed of. So because of that just geopolitical shift there, and they're kind of associated with families in this north suburban area that we're seeing a lot. But I do want to mention 2 things. I think we're going to have to change our curriculum. We were teaching English as a second language at the pace of learning of for many years of immigrants who came and didn't have high education levels. So I am, from the teacher perspective, I'm like kind of telling teachers, you know what, these students are motivated. They know how to learn. You can move them faster. We don't have to go level 1 to 2 to 3 kind of thing. So I think that is our biggest change. And then another gap I'm seeing is, even though we can take them, is because, and Britt, you mentioned this, the children the school districts are just simply overwhelmed, but
Yes.
the 16, 17-year-olds that in the past we would really encourage to go to high school as, you know, the best way to learn English for a young person rather than come to our adult ed programs, they're kind of not being well received just because the high schools are overwhelmed. And unfortunately, I feel bad because adult ed isn't, at least we're not, we take them, but it's not the best for them. And it's kind of unfortunate because, you know, they're young and they're, you know, ready. They have really good educational basis in the content areas, but they still have the English gap. So there's just a gap that between ISB and ICCB, I think that might need to be addressed at some point creatively.
Because you're saying also that if the high schools are so inundated, they don't have the instructors or the teachers, because it's such a cyclical thing, because if there's a teacher shortage, they just can't add more people in.
And the way they're handling it is, well, okay, they already have a high school diploma from Venezuela. Why do they need it? You know, but they need the English, and used to be that going to high school would teach you both the English and how to be a kid in this country kind of thing. So
Right,
yeah, it's kind of unfortunate.
right. And just out of curiosity, to go back to the curriculum switch that you're contemplating, like, are you thinking of going from what to what? Like, are you looking at Burlington English, or like for higher level, or what are you doing about that?
Well, I personally teach a level 1, and we were using the basic ventures book, and I've
Oh, right.
completely thrown that out because it's worthless. So we know we have to just dig in and get some more content.
Mhm.
And the other thing is the digital literacy that we had built into every level. I mean, it used to be level 1, we teach how to use a mouse. Well, no, now we teach how to sign into a portal, and it's definitely, so we just have to go through and make it more rigorous. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
rigorous, or the content was just slow for our
Right.
students. And there still are, I mean, we still need to address, I feel it's important to address those that that are less fortunate. They have less education. You can,
Mhm.
from different countries, they're still going to be with us, and we still have to address them because they can easily get overlooked in this, especially as we're kind of excited. We might hit our level gains this year, because not because we change anything, but because the students change.
Mhm.
So we can't forget those who are less prepared in their home countries. But yeah, so more content, I guess, more English content.
Right.
You
Okay.
know, Andrea, it's Lori Martin. Would Harper, are you giving any thought to creating classes for students of different educational backgrounds? I mean, I'm familiar with how Harper has placed its students up until now, but do you think that kind of thing would be an option for you?
Yeah, honestly, we already kind of do that. We place, let's say we have 3 level 1s, we place kind of the lower educated in a level 1, because that's the true challenge for a teacher, dealing with education levels rather than even the English language level. So we try to place like that as much as possible. Previously to these last couple of years, we haven't had enough highly educated, so now they're a bigger force. So yeah, we kind of have always tried to do that. As long as you can create a whole class, it's, as those of us, Julie and I are still enrolling students at the last minute because there's so much demand. As you get to the last point, you're just trying to like fit in a class to their schedule, so sometimes it becomes mixed. But yes, as much as possible, Lori. Yeah.
Great.
I have an advanced ESL student who teaches in the high school ESL support. So he's bilingual, obviously, and he serves as both student and teacher. So I don't know if that's an avenue that we could look at some point, but our public schools need ESL tutors and teachers so badly that he was hired without a teaching certificate. And he's more or less an assistant, but it works for him. And obviously it's great support for the students. Are your school districts opening up the possibility of tutors who are not who have not completed licensing, or no?
Well, I know up here, and jump in, anyone else, they're always hiring paraprofessionals as assistants in the classroom, and you don't need a full certification for that role. Go ahead, Andrea, were you going to mention something?
Well, I think maybe Julie can pipe in too, but we have we're working with several projects. This need has been great even before this immigrant influx to teacher assistant parent mentors. We're working with the school district 15. Yeah, it's been quite a shortage already before this new immigrant influx.
And I know they recently changed the requirements for them to get a certificate too. So that has helped a couple of our students even to get a job in the school systems as a paraprofessional.
Right.
And I think with the goal of allowing them to begin and be certified potentially at the same time, if they're interested in that path. Are the children, Britt, being served? Do you think, are the children of the refugees being served sufficiently in your area?
They are, as far as like the couple sites that I've been to, because they quickly set up and organize them to be bused to 10 various schools. And I'm assuming I should find out for sure on this answer, why 10 different schools at one emergency shelter? But I'm assuming because of the need, well, the different age groups, first of all, and the need for teachers. So if they didn't have enough at one school, they've got 10 different schools that they're going to. So long story short, yes, at that particular site, they're making do. What about experiences? I just want to throw out there again with any other instructors or staff members, administrators that you're seeing in the classroom.
Well, I know with our program right now, especially with IEL's civics education programming that's linked up to bridge programs, we struggle with the curriculum. Obviously, our students navigate through ESL 6, and then they get to that point where they can't achieve a gain. And we try to integrate them into our career programs, our pre-bridges, our bridges, and they still, which I totally understand, my heart goes out to them. They're very intelligent individuals. Some of them have a doctorate degree from their home country, but when it comes to the reading comprehension and the writing, they score under the 6th grade level. And, you know, a lot of the ABE curriculum is, at some points, in my opinion, they feel like it's demeaning and it's elementary. Does anybody have any recommendations of maybe transitional curriculum that may be used? I know we're trying to experiment with Burlington English. We got a strong usage of that, but we also are looking at a new product as well called Engine. And we're in the pilot phase of that, but we're trying to see if that can kind of mitigate or be a buffer to try to help those students improve their reading comprehension as well as those writing skills to a deeper level that they're college and career ready.
Did anyone have any suggestions with that? Because anyone else using Engine as a curriculum? That one I haven't.
Not yet. We use Burlington.
Okay.
We use Burlington as well.
I looked at Engine a few years ago. It's a direct competitor to Burlington. But I just don't recall so much about it. In Burlington, their career course that actually has units for very specific jobs, those are often written at a pretty high level, for sure at a high school level, because when I was using them for my ESL class, they were like too high for some of my, ESL advanced ESL students. But they are, those units are not there really to teach people general English.
Yeah.
They're there to teach them specific content and vocabulary about particular careers. So, having students work in those modules that are in their field of interest either, as a way to explore a possible career path that would be accessible to them here in the States, or just to give them work at a higher level. They are at a higher level, but this is, up until this point, the natural skills progression for an ESL student is to go from ESL, advanced ESL, so NRS level 6, to ABE,
Yeah. Definitely.
or possibly ASE. But, therein lies the rub. And, Jamil, as you described it, with people feeling that the content is not stimulating or it's not challenging to them because they know some of the content already. It's still the language that is the problem.
So I'm going to jump in behind that, Lori, and make a suggestion to Jamil and anybody else struggling with this. This is not a solution for all of you, so don't expect this big amazing thing to come out of my mouth. But keep in mind that ESL students, you can do bridges and ICAPs that are specific to ESL only. I mean, there are programs I know, I believe Anne is doing one at Blackhawk that is a bridge program that is entirely ESL. You can do ICAPs, and the support class can be an entirely ESL class. And so if you've got those students that are at that higher level, those are the ones that we would suggest you move into a bridge or ICAPs. If you have those in the areas that they're interested in, and maybe it's that you have several that are in healthcare, then do a healthcare bridge. You have several that are interested in IT, do an IT bridge, several that are interested in manufacturing, various ways. Maybe you do a business one because they all want to own their own business. They want to go into marketing. They want to do the financial side of it. Do a business bridge. And maybe that's a way, Jamil, to keep them engaged. They're still working on their English. It's in something a little bit more specific than here's your ESL class, here's the grammar, we're all going to learn about housing again, we're all going to talk about the school system again, we're all going to talk about 911 and emergencies again. You're moving it up a little bit to a notch at a time, and you're not, and you can still talk about all those ABE and ASE components, but it's in the healthcare version, it's in the IT version. So you're not necessarily talking about this plus this equals this, because that's the same in every single language. But you have to teach them maybe what is the plus sign versus an equal sign, because maybe that's not how they do it in their language. So again, you're dealing with more of those focused points and less very broad. And I don't know if you've tried that or not. I know some people are afraid to put ESL students into a bridge or into an ICAPS because they don't know if it'll work, and I get it. But any of us that have worked with ESL students, and I have 20 years experience with it, they are motivated and they will work their hardest to try to figure it out, or to work with you to try to figure it out. So,
and I know there's my suggestion here. I'm about to send her an email in a little bit to see if I can feature her tomorrow. But there's someone in here who has been working very hard to support her ESL students in transitions, and they're running an entrepreneurial bridge. Also have many students in their ICAPS program, ESL students in their ICAPS programs right now. So they've been seeing a lot of success and really from their ESL students in transitions.
And Jamil, sometimes we have problems with the numbers to run the IETs and so on. So we did develop in 214, we call it College and Career Ready Bridge. And it's a little more independent study type thing, because they can pick and choose which career they want to research and present on. And we give them the resources to help them. And Burlington English has been helpful with that too. So, because a lot of times we have just a handful of people who want to do it. They're coming from ESL and they're afraid. And so the presentational speaking kind of helps them get out of their shell a little bit. But we just call it College and Career Ready and let them explore anything else, any career that they want to explore. And we try to help them with the resources and, checking out the job possibilities in the area and how much they would make and do all those types of things. And then learn about what's the industry like in the United States. And then we try to do some employability skills or things like that along with it, interviewing, resume building, and kind of incorporate all that into one bridge. But that allows us to serve more students because we've been having trouble getting people focused into one area or the other, even though manufacturing and healthcare for us should be a huge draw. It hasn't been that way.
Thank you. Right.
And I also know, and I recognize because I've been in ESL long enough, that not all of the ESL students are headed to job employment. I get that. Some of them are headed towards citizenship. Some of them just want to be able to communicate with their kids' teachers and doctor, and I get that as well. So I recognize that not all of them are going to be like, "Ooh, let's go learn a new career." I get it, but there are some of those. I'm going to put a link in the chat as long as I can do this. I've been watching Sarah and Tara do this for like 3 years, so now I'm like overconfident that I can make it happen myself.
We believe in you, Angela. You can do it.
You did it.
Yay! Go me. So that is a link to the ICCB website that has my Zoom just completely changed screens on me. And so that is a link to approved curriculum already for bridges. So if there's a bridge on there that you're thinking, so that Career Pathways Bridge is the one that Julie was talking about, Ecology Career. I know that a lot of these are based on ASE, ABE skills. Take what you need and sub out ESL information. I mean, maybe you need to cover a little bit of math and a little bit of the language arts, maybe not as much history and science, but maybe that's still good for them to have as well. But sub in ESL material. And when you're proposing a bridge, so Jamil says, hey, let's do a college and career bridge, or he says, let's do a manufacturing bridge. And when you're doing the job form and the question is, what adult ed are you using? When you say we're using the ICCB approved manufacturing curriculum, we go, great, you're done, check. We don't have to check 5 other things to make sure that what you're doing is logical, because we don't want you to use the Jamil manufacturing curriculum that we've never heard of before. If you're using our stuff, we've already built it. Sarah and Tara have done amazing jobs with it, and it's already approved. Use it, it's there.
Although
Hey,
we're sure
Angela.
that the Jamil manufacturing curriculum would be top notch. For sure. There's been so much good discussion and so many people have shared wonderful ideas, and that's the spirit of the learning community. So we really appreciate everyone's attendance and sharing. And Itri put it in the chat earlier about this is a great opportunity. If you have individuals with advanced skills and advanced knowledge, this is the perfect place to teach them contextually the English language, because they know so much and now they need that support. So if we can help you in any way to with it is specifically in the bridge or the ICAPS IET area, or if Julie, you were talking about having smaller numbers, but some of you have also shared, we have a whole group of people. So maybe you can have a CNA ICAPS where you can provide the English language support for people that already have all the knowledge that they need for the specific knowledge that they're going to need to be a CNA. And that, and I can tell you also, there are many hospitals, and we can help you with some of that information as well to make that connection. They are dying for good people to be working in their hospitals, and there are some hoops to jump through, but now is the time that they are motivated employers to support. And they can't bend rules as far as certification, but they certainly can support financially. And I love that job shadowing. That's a great option. So yeah, thanks to everybody.
Thank you, too. And we will email out that information. Thank you so much, Britt, for sharing that. And thanks everyone for participating. I know we're already past time, so I won't pop the slides back up, but just as a reminder, next month, we are not going to have this VLC because we are encouraging everyone to go to IASA and all the fabulous sessions that IASA has going on. And so we will have that in place of it. And yes. Oh, thank you, Jenny.
Nice job, Jenny. Way to like stick
yeah.
that right in there. Everybody should register for IASA and go. There's going to be awesome sessions there. So
I'm here for it. Thanks for the opportunity there.
you've been waiting, right, Jenny? You were waiting to plug that right in.
job.
Perfect. Perfect. We love
It's what I'm here for. Not to learn, not for discussion. Nope, just to plug IASA.
Okay, restaurant manager. Yes, absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you. We'll be excited to hear about that. So we will be in touch. Thank you. And we hope to see you next time as well. Keep checking the pulse. We'll put reminders in there and everything. And we will see you hopefully at IASA and then again here in April. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you again,
Thank
Britt.
you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Britt.
Awesome.
Thank you.